Hi everyone. For this video, we're going to explore some of the workflows you can use for assessment 1. So depending on the task you're doing, this will be able to help you. So for example, if you're a story artist, then you're assigned to do the layout for the shots. So I'll just cover some of the workflows there. Now, first up, I did share a folder, or I'll be sharing a folder for Maya. So that's basically our project folder for this class. So I'm going to share this, but basically inside it, right? We have a Maya project folder. We have all the subdirectories there, but under the scene subdirectory, you have your scaling reference. You have the characters there. Again, these are just blockouts. So these are stand-ins. You're supposed to use those files to create a version of the character, prop, or environment that you're creating. And then ideally, you're going to save it here. So again, there's environment and there's 4 environments there. So if you're a environment artist, you probably want to open or set this project folder and make sure you have access to that. And then there's layout. For story artists, this is where you probably end up saving your scene. And then you have props, effects, etc. Okay, so how does this work? So I'm currently in Maya. And the ideal scenario, everyone, is you download OneDrive. And the reason for that is OneDrive allows you to automatically sync the project folder that you have here. Now, yes, you can individually download files, but imagine we're a few weeks into the production and we have like hundreds of textures and hundreds of, uh, quite a few number of assets. So we might have like 30 assets and then we have like 100 textures. So you don't want the scenario where you constantly update and download files and you don't even know which ones are the updated ones. So my recommendation is download the OneDrive app so you're able to automatically sync your OneDrive. So what does that look like? If you download the OneDrive app, what it looks like, everyone, it's going to create an app and also a link or shortcut in your computer, and it's going to perhaps look something like this. So notice that this is OneDrive. Again, it's installed in my machine, and what happens is it will update and automatically sync the folder. So this is the folder again that I'm sharing. It will automatically sync there. So what this means is any changes that will be done in the characters, in the props, in the environments, it will automatically update in your computer and you don't have to constantly re-download things. So with that said, okay, let's see how this works. I'm currently in Maya and let me just reset my workspace. Again, after syncing or after downloading OneDrive and you sync, let's say, the project folder and everything's downloaded there, you can now set the project. Okay, so I'll set the project and I'll set it. Again, this is my OneDrive now, right? So it's automatically syncing. This is the project folder I'm going to share with everyone, and that's the Maya project folder you want to set. Okay, so let's have a look at maybe the workflow for story. So remember, for story artists, you're going to be implementing the 4 acts, but you probably want to start with the first 2. So just an example here. I'm a story artist and I need to implement Act 1. So what I need is definitely, right, in Act 1, it's going to be the interior scene or the interior environment. I need to be able to use that, and I need the characters there, so both the inventor character and the sibling character. And I probably need the airship. So let's have a look at how that works. I already set up my project. This is an empty scene. Remember, for this particular, for creating the layout and the flow of the shots, I first need the environment. Remember, the environment I need here is the interior one. So I'll just go, again, for this one, I won't import. The problem with import is any changes that will be done with the main environment or the files, it won't get automatically updated in your scene. So what you want to do is instead of import, you're going to create a reference. So we're creating a reference and I'm again looking for that environment. So under environment folder, I'm looking for that workshop interior. I'll create a reference. So again, the idea with the reference is any changes that will be done by the environment artist with that reference will automatically be updated in your scene. So this is again just a blackout, right? Again, this will change, but this is just your starting point. So for example, for this one, I imagine that the airship will be here, and then this might be the bed, and this might be the table, and then this is the control area. Okay, so again, this is just a really rough blackout, right? So we have the environment, okay? We also need the characters. So again, I'm going to create a reference for those characters. So I'll just go File, Create Reference. Again, do not import, we're creating a reference. And I'm looking for the characters this time. It's in the character subdirectory. The first character I need is the inventor. I'll reference that, and there's our inventor there. Again, this is obviously not the final inventor model, but that's just a stand-in, so we can start building our shots. So what I'll do is again, maybe for this one, we'll have the inventor maybe sit or maybe be in the control area. So maybe I'll just reposition our inventor there. Okay, so maybe that's where she will be in the majority of the shots. Another character I need, everyone, is going to be the sibling. So I'll create a reference, and this time there's the character sibling. Again, it's the 01 character directory. I'll just create a reference for that, and notice now that that's the sibling character, and maybe, again, I'll rotate that, and maybe reposition that there. So see, notice now that, again, maybe, again, I can move this and animate that later on, but for the purpose of the starting point, I just want those characters to be there. So maybe this is the computer area. So with that said, okay, we're almost done. I probably need one more because we probably need the blimp or the airship here. So again, I'll just go File, and I'm going to create a reference again. And the reference this time is the airship. And notice now that this is the airship. I can reposition that, so maybe the airship will be maybe somewhere there later on. Okay, so with this done, again, a lot will change, right? These are just stand-in models. With this done, again, this is an empty scene. This is where I'm going to now save this, okay? So I'll save the scene as, I'll put that under layout, and then maybe I'll just create a folder there. It's called Act 01. So that's our Act 1, and I'll place that here. So this is going to be my Act 1 layout. And again, because there's multiple students doing the same thing, you probably just want to put your name there. Okay, so maybe I'll just put in Ivan Sample. Okay, and then I'll hit save. So notice what happens. Again, these are not imported. Any changes that will be done to the sibling, the airship, or the inventor, or even the environment will automatically get updated in your scene. So with this said now, okay, what I'll do is I'm going to have a look at our script. So this is our Act 1 script. If you don't have this, just let me know, but that's going to be in Miro. And again, you can see the script there. So I need to start with an establishing shot. It's roughly 5 seconds in duration. Okay, now the entire thing is actually around 60 seconds. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just set my scene up. So it's going to be 60 seconds. Okay, so we're currently animating at 24, I think. So we're supposed to animate at 24. I think for this project, we'll probably end up animating at 30. So what I'll do is I'll just change the settings here. So I'll just go and change that. Instead of 24, I'll just change that to 30. And then make sure that playback speed is 30 times 1. So again, this is quite important. We just need to make sure that we have the correct frame rate. So that's 30 frames per second. And then playback speed is 30 times 1. Again, this is your animation preferences here. So I'll hit save. So again, I'll just save my scene. Now, I set everything up properly. So I already have my objects there. I can now start creating my shots. But as I mentioned, I prefer just changing my length here to the correct length. So it's going to be 1 minute, which is 60 seconds. So what that means is, if I just grab a calculator, it's going to be 60 seconds, but we're animating at 30 frames per second. So that means we probably need around 1,800 frames. So I'll just change that to 1,800 because again, that's going to be a minute of animation there. With this done, Okay, I can now start creating my shots. Now, if some of you are not familiar with it, a really great way of creating layout or creating your sequence inside Maya is through the camera sequencer. So I'll just create my camera sequencer by just going under panels, saved layouts. There's something there called perspective camera sequencer. So I'll just create that. Again, the idea behind this is I can sequence camera together. So my first camera, and maybe I'll just create 3 cameras for now. My first camera is going to be maybe some sort of establishing shot that's spanning across the dirty workshop. So I'll just create that camera. So I'll just go create camera. This is going to be cam 01, and this is maybe, I'll just call that establishing. And then maybe it's because we're using it in the floor, I'll place it there. Now, let's have a look at looking through that camera. To look through the camera, I'll just go perspective and then look through that camera. What I like doing is I like changing my view to camera settings and then resolution gate there. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll just perhaps reframe our camera. So maybe I'll close this because I don't really need this at this stage. So let me just close that so we can concentrate on what's happening here. So I'll just, again, maybe change our display. Now, we do have one issue. Our issue is, remember, we're using a different type of resolution. It's actually quite wide. The resolution we're going for is actually 388. So it's quite big. Again, so remember, the resolution we're working on is, again, 30 frames per second. It's going to be 7776 by 1440. So how this works is you just go to your Windows rendering editors, render settings, and we'll just change the camera, right? So we'll change the camera or the resolution here. Instead of using a preset of 540, we have to manually change it. So it's going to be 7776, and it's going to be by 1440. And it's going to look something like this. Okay, so another thing is we actually have a mask there. So maybe we'll just deal with the mask later on. What do I mean by the mask? So yes, that's the correct resolution, but the visible content is going to be here, right? So again, we might deal with that later on. But the idea is, see, I'm just, again, reframing our camera. Notice how different that is, see? So now, see, it's going to be like a close-up, and maybe it's going to be on the ground here. Now, I'm not liking what I'm getting from, so I might need to change my camera, meaning I just want the camera to be wider. So I'll select the camera. I'll go to the attribute editor, or maybe I'll just change it here under my channel box. I'll change the focal length so it's wider. I'll change it to 25, and notice now that that actually works really well. So first shot, right? It's going to be around 5 seconds. Again, it's a pan across the dirty floor, and then the screw or a bolt suddenly rolls in front of the camera. So I'm thinking that's going to be my first shot. I won't animate the camera yet, but maybe the shot will be roughly here. So see, it's the ground, okay? And what I like doing is I just want to have a look at where it is physically. So again, see, that's our camera. It's kind of near the ground. What I'll do is I'll just turn on a smooth wireframe. Or I'll just make sure that I can actually see the wireframe. So I'll just go wireframe unshaded. So there you go. So notice, guys, that is roughly where my camera is. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just look through my camera again. So see, that's going to be my shot. I imagine that my camera is going to move like this, and then we suddenly see a bolt. Okay, so that's my first camera. Now, rather than animating the camera, what I'll do is I'll just create my cameras first. Maybe I'll just create 3. The next camera I have, and looking at this, I have another camera. It's a medium shot. It's a pan shot of the table. So basically, I have the table here. So I'm going to create another camera. Now, rather than creating a totally new camera, so just to show you, if I go new camera here and then look through that camera, I can actually still do that. And then I can look through it. and then just make sure, again, shading, view, camera settings, resolution gate, so I can see the resolution. You know what? This is fine. This cam 02 now, and this is table, for example. So what I'll do is I'll again reframe that. Okay. Remember, I prefer that to be wide. So I'll zoom out. Maybe somewhere here. It's going to be a shot of the table. And again, maybe here. So it's going to pan left to right. Okay. And then maybe it will eventually end on the bed. So let's say that's the bed. Now, again, the focal length is currently at 35. Maybe I just prefer that to be wider so it has a deeper perspective. So maybe, I don't know, 20, for example. So let's see what that looks like. So I'm thinking for roughly around 10 seconds, it's going to start panning. 10, slowly seeing what's happening there. And then eventually it will stop here. And then we see, let's say, the picture here. Okay, so as a layout artist, there's really a lot of things you need to think about. Your creative decisions will include what's going to be visible on the frame. So for example, if you need certain stuff to be here, then place it. So just an example, okay? So if you really want to make the shot look good, if you want, for example, some sort of prop here, and I'll just visualize that using, again, you can create stuff, right? Even if it's someone else's, even if you're referencing the environment. As a layout artist, you can populate, you can add things there. Again, your purpose is you're thinking about the framing, making sure that each shot looks good. So again, for this one, I know that having a prop there, maybe some sort of, maybe it's, maybe a drill, for example, or maybe some sort of hammer. Maybe to represent that, I'll just create maybe a cylinder. And again, I'll just reposition that cylinder there, making it bigger. So again, maybe this represents my hammer, for example. Okay, and then I'll just scale that down and then make that smaller. And then again, maybe that's a tool, right? And I'll just reposition it there. Okay, so again, the idea behind that is, again, I need to make my shot look good. So maybe I'll make that a bit smaller, like roughly there, to make the shot look good. See, I will need that to be there. So maybe it pans across. And then obviously what I need is I need some sort of, again, looking at the script, right? Looking at the script, it's going to end with some sort of paper showing the inventor. So I can even create, let's say, a polygonal plane that will represent the paper. Again, this will be replaced with an actual prop later on in the process, right? But as a layout artist, you need to think about framing. So you need to think about position of really important things. So it's totally fine that you're creating the paper yourself, and then you're just using it to visualize the shot, right? So what I'll do is maybe make that smaller, and then maybe that's a piece of paper there. I can even just add a simple color. And the way to do that, I guess, is I'll just right click on it. I'll just assign new material. And then maybe I'll just assign an Arnold standard surface. And maybe what I'll do is just, again, go to my attribute editor and then just assign a different color there. Maybe red. Okay. So maybe something like that. That's probably too big for a piece of paper, but you know what? That's fine. Anyway, again, I just imagine that this shot will be going left to right and then eventually end up with the paper there. Okay. So at this stage, maybe I'll just create another camera. Our camera is going to be, okay, there's going to be a dolly where we can see the inventor on the control area. So this is the control area. Again, you can create a new camera, or what you can do is you can just duplicate this. So I can just duplicate my first camera. So I press edit and then duplicate. And then this is going to be camera 03, and then there's going to be meet inventor. Okay. Again, I look through camera 3. Again, I'm not worried about animation yet. I'll just really want to frame it, right? So maybe it's going to be a shot. Maybe it's going to dolly in like this. We don't see this character yet, so maybe I'll just put that character there. And then this is our character, right? So maybe I'll start off from the top. So maybe here, okay? So again, it's going to dolly in, for example, so we can see the character. Or depending on what you want, maybe you prefer it to be maybe going from here, so maybe here to there. Okay, so I'll leave it up to you. But I already have 3 shots there, right? So I have 3, sorry, not shots, but 3 cameras. So how do you sequence these cameras? Okay, to sequence these cameras, again, as a layout artist, you really have a lot of options for this. So for example, if you don't like how that is positioned or scaled, just let us know. If you prefer that to be rotated that way, that's totally fine. Again, you're worried about the framing, you're worried about what's visible in the shot. So again, it's totally fine. Just make sure to save it as a different file. So see, I have my name there, so I have my own version. So I'm saving the scene. And again, this is where I can start creating my shots. Okay, so first up, okay, I'm going to, again, this is my camera sequencer. Remember, panels, save layouts, perspective camera sequencer. So what I'll do is I'll create my first shot. To create my first shot, I'll go create, and I'll create a shot. Now this is the tricky bit. Give it a name, right? So this is going to be shot 01, and this is establishing floor, for example. Again, it will ask you for what camera you want to use. This is obviously going to be camera 1. It's going to start at frame 1 all the way to frame, again, it's 5 seconds. What is 5 seconds at 30 frames per second? Maybe that's all the way to 150. So I'll just have that at 150. Now, for the new placement shot, this is important. I just want you to change it to manual. So this one. Because you just need to copy this. Make sure this start time is exactly the same as the sequence start time. This end time is exactly the same as the sequence end time. Because again, a bit more technical in terms of the reasoning for that. And the reason is you just want everything to be linear, because the sequencer can actually play a sequence non-linearly, meaning it can have, let's say, shot 5, create a shot where the animation takes place from frame 0 to frame 150. So it's basically it has the ability to edit shots in a non-linear time method. So again, just be careful with that. I don't want that. So we just want that to be linear. So 150. So the next frame will be 151. So I'll create my shot. Okay, create shot. Notice what happens. Our first shot is created. It goes from frame 1 to frame 150. It uses camera 1. And what I'll do is maybe I'll just change this to frame 1. There you go. Okay, so again, I won't animate yet. Okay, maybe I'll concentrate on the first 300 frames though. Next shot for us, everyone, is going to be, again, the shot that involves the table, right? So it's camera 2. Remember, if you have a look at the sequence, we have the second shot roughly around 10 frames, 10 seconds. So we probably need that to be 300 frames. So how does this work? We create a shot. Remember, this is going to be shot 2. And then this is going to be my table. Okay, it's going to be using the second camera. And again, the start time, we cannot have the start time exactly the same as, we can't have it between 1 to 151. It has to happen after 150. Okay, so I have my start time has to be 151. Since it's 300 frames, this probably needs to end at frame 450. Right? So we're just adding 300 to 150. It's 450. Again, make sure, everyone, you copy the start, paste it here, copy the end time, make sure it's the same as the sequence end time. Again, making sure everything will be linear in terms of time. And then I'll just create my shot. And notice what happens. First shot, second shot done. Now, the camera sequencer actually has its own playback button. To see the animation here, you really have to, and let me just change this. There you go. Okay. So again, to see the sequence, you just need to play this button here. Again, this is for animation, for characters and stuff. This is for to see the actual time itself. So see, notice that we can actually see a cut here. So see, it cuts from frame 150, cuts to frame 151. Okay. So I'll just create my third camera shot. So my third shot will be introducing the character. So remember, it's maybe shot 3, introduce, okay? And then it having a look at the sequence, it's roughly 4 seconds, which is 120 frames. So what I'll do is I'm going to, again, my camera will be the third camera. I have to start at 451, so that's plus 120. It's going to be 570, I think. So maybe I'll just go 570. And again, copy and then paste, right? Copy and then paste. It has to be the same. Start here the same, and then here the same. So I'll just create shot. Now we have 3 shots. Again, to play this back, you have to use this button here. So again, see, notice now, again, it's still using this camera, right? And now what will happen is it will allow me to play that. There you go. Okay. With that said, okay, with this said, what I can do now is I can start perhaps animating camera. Again, the ideal is you want to finish everything, but I don't have time to do that. I'll just do frame camera 1 to camera 3. But again, if you're doing the entire sequence, then you have to perhaps lay out all the shots. Okay, so what I'll do now is maybe start animating the camera. Okay, I probably want to animate the bolt that suddenly appears here, but I'll do that later on. So for this one, I'll select this camera, right? So this is camera 1. Again, I'm changing my sequence, so I actually see that it's starting at frame 1 here. Okay, so what I'll do is I know that this animation need to take place at frame 1 to frame 150. So I'll select my camera. So this is camera 1, this is camera 1 here. I'll go to frame 1. Okay, maybe I'll start here. Okay, so maybe I'll start with that. I'll set a keyframe. And then I know that my last frame needs to be around 150. It doesn't have to be perfectly 150. So maybe I'll just go 151. Okay. The reason is the camera, the moment it cuts, it just goes to the next camera. So even if your animation is a bit longer, that's fine. Okay. So what I'll do is at frame 151, I'll just move this maybe here. Okay. So maybe here. But in fact, I actually prefer it stopping. So maybe at frame 120, I'll have it stop here. Okay. And then at frame 151, I'll just perhaps move that a little bit and then set a keyframe. So it's going to look something like this. So if I hit play, see, it's going to pan, and then it's going to see the dirty floor, and then we start seeing, I guess. So again, we might end up seeing, so here, we might end up seeing the bolt here. So maybe I'll just do it maybe a bit nearer. Maybe this one, I'll just move it a little bit there. Okay, so this is my shot, everyone. Okay, so this is my first shot. So I'll start animating camera 2. So remember, I'm using my camera sequencer. I'm going to that particular part where I can start seeing camera 2. So it's going to be this one, around 151. It creates a cut, and now we're using camera 2. So I know I need to animate camera 2 from frame 151 to frame 450. So what I'll do is I'll select that camera. Or you can just select it here. Remember, we need to animate it here in the timeline from frame 151 at least. I can go early, okay, but you probably don't want to go late. So I'll just go early, let's say frame 149, for example. Again, this is the last point of my shot, but what I'll do is I'll just pan, right? So maybe the starting point of this is here. So maybe the idea is it's going to move left and right here, and then eventually ends here. So what I'll do is maybe I'll start here, and then maybe I'll again select the camera, set the keyframe at frame 149, and then remember, we need this to be we need the shot to be ending at around 450. So I'll just go maybe 400, and maybe I'll just move this all the way through here. Okay. And again, the idea behind that is maybe I'll just want to spend a few seconds with the camera here. Okay. So what I'll do is maybe at frame 380, I'll set a keyframe there. And then maybe here, again, see, I'll hold the camera at frame, that frame, and then maybe I'll do a little bit of a zoom dolly in afterwards. So it's going to look something like that. Okay, so again, if I hit play, we're using, again, the camera sequencer, I get that shot. Okay, and then it eventually ends there. And then it dollies in a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll improve my camera move. So for example, I guess here, see, notice now that maybe at this point, right? I'll just move this there. Okay, so set a keyframe, and then let's see what that looks like. Let's see. And then it goes down here. I think that my starting point is a bit too much, so maybe I'll just probably start here. So set a keyframe, and then there you go. And then it moves there. Okay. So again, let's see our sequence. If I hit play, that's my first shot. Then again, I won't animate the bolt yet, but let's have a look later on. And then we have our camera there. And then it moves towards the bed. And then we see the drawing. And then it's going to cut to our next camera. So our next camera, remember, it's going to be a wide shot, and then it's meeting the characters, and we just dolly towards the inventor, right? Working here. So what I'll do is, we already have the camera and the shot. We need it animated from frame 451 to 470. So what I'm thinking at this stage is just make sure to select, I guess, my camera. I know I need this animated between 451, which is roughly here, all the way to 570. So I'll just reframe this. And maybe what I'll do, you know what? I'm thinking I'll probably just do that shot. Okay, that shot, then we see the character. So it's like a crane shot. So what I'll do here is maybe I'll start here. I'll set a keyframe at frame 448. And again, I need it. This sequence needs to finish at 470. So maybe at 440, 540, I'll just have it go down. Okay. And then maybe at 470 or maybe 472, I'll just dolly in a little bit, and then there you go. Okay, so see, basically, I have something like that. Let's see our sequence, everyone. Okay, so again, I'll hit play the sequence here in the sequencer. I'll hit play, and then what I'll do is, again, just have a look at that. That's the cut, and now we have, let's see. There you go. And then it's cut. And now we have something like that. Okay. Now, to showcase or share this sequence with everyone, you need to create a play blast. Now, creating a play blast inside the sequencer is different, meaning you have to go under play blast here in the sequencer and then just play blast the sequence. Ideally, you want to do this afterwards, right? Now, before I do a play blast, let me just introduce some animation here because I know I need a bolt somewhere there. So what I'll do is I'll just recreate that bolt. Maybe I'll go to my perspective view and I'll just perhaps use this. I'll duplicate that, and basically, again, this is my bolt. Again, the idea behind this is just a stand-in. Again, the props artist will end up creating this. You don't have to model the bolt yourself or any. As a layout artist, you're really concerned about the story, not necessarily modeling those individual stuff, right? So what I want to do is perhaps, again, this is supposed to be a bolt, so it's going to be relatively small. So again, I'll just rotate that. It's supposed to roll, right? So maybe, again, let's have a look at my shot. This is, so there's our bolt there. Okay, so it's supposed to there. So maybe I'll just have it roll. Maybe I'll have it roll left to right. So perhaps I'll have that. I'll just change my move tool. So I double click on the move tool, change that to object level instead of world. So now I can just move this here perhaps. So the idea is I'll just have this animated, maybe rotated a little bit. So I'm just animating this. So basically our shot will look like this. And then I'll just, again, I'm selecting the bolt, keyframing that at frame 195. And then again, I need to end at frame 150. So maybe at frame 150, I'll just have it rotate and then moved. So maybe somewhere here towards, again, let's see what that looks like. Oops. So a bit too much. So again, it's rotated. So I just really want it rotated in one angle. So maybe rotate Y. Okay. So if this doesn't work, again, the idea is, let me just negative, like zero that one out. Okay. And what I'll do is perhaps keyframe that again. Let's set a keyframe. And maybe I'll just have that, again, zero that out, 90. And then maybe I'll set a keyframe for that. And then maybe at frame 158, I'll just have that move. So I think there, I changed it. And then maybe here, I'll just have it rotate going forwards. There you go. Again, will be tricky. And then rotate it like that and maybe move it down a little bit. So set a keyframe there. There. So now it rolls. And then maybe I'll actually have that. You know what? Let me just change this. I'll reanimate that. Maybe I just want that towards the middle of the frame. So maybe somewhere here. Maybe I'll probably need that to be bigger as well. So I need it to be in that particular point. And let me just change this to 0, 0. There you go. And hopefully this works. Okay, so let's see. So what I'll do is set a keyframe for that. Maybe all the way here. I'll just move it. You know what? I'll just use my world this time. And then I'll just move it there. So let's see what that looks like. There. Okay. So again, ideally, I probably need to rig that. But anyway, this should be fine. And maybe here, I'll just have that roll and maybe land there. Okay. And then let's see what that looks like. And I'll just move those keyframes around. There. Okay. So again, as a layout artist, that's part of my role. I have the object rolling there. And then it goes to the cut. And maybe what I'll do is I'll actually move this in a little bit. So again, you can add some animations. For example, if you want the character to maybe, again, just for visualization, this is not character animation at all. So what I'll do is maybe, right, I just need to animate it at 4. Maybe it's turning to visualize, let's say, a turn. So that's what I want, okay? So what I'll do is maybe at 450, I'll set a keyframe there, and maybe I'll rotate it at frame 570. And maybe I'll just move that a little bit, okay? So let's have a look at our sequence now, okay? If I hit play, I have that, and then it's rolling. And then we have, oops, again, we're playing it from here. So if I hit play, there's our shot, and we see the bolt rolling, and then it cuts to the table, and then we see the leather, the drawing, and then it cuts to our girl, to the girl, the inventor there, and then there you go. Okay, so again, you end up doing this for the entire sequence. So the last thing probably I want to do is share a play blast of this. And the way to do that is to just go play blast and then just play blast the sequence. Go to the option box because it's going to save it in your movies directory. usually, right? Again, make sure to set the projects. See, that's why having that OneDrive page is useful, or OneDrive app, because you're able to automatically update. And then you set the project up, and now notice now it's going to save it automatically in movies, which is good. And then I'll just put the file name shot, maybe that's Ivan example. Okay, and then it's going to be, again, for this one, JPEG. We just want this to be JPEGs, and then it's 720 by 1080. I'll just change that, right? Remember, it's supposed to be 7. It's supposed to be 7. Let's have a look at our resolution. So Windows, rendering editors, render settings, 776 by 1440. So maybe half of that is okay. So half of that might be 3888 and then 720. So that's just half of it. And then I'll just to be safe, I'll just create a new folder there. I'll just call that Ivan sample. And again, the reason for that is it's going to be an image sequence, so I need to save it here. So play blast the sequence, okay? And now notice now that it will take some time, but it's going to be relatively fast. You can add cameras, add lights if you want, even change the colors, just to make it visually more pleasing. But again, we're worried more, right, about our, there you go. So we're worried more about our, the flow of our shots. Now, with the sequence created, we just need to convert that into a movie file. So I'll just use Adobe Media Encoder, and I'll just convert that into a sequence. So just to show you, right? Let me just open Media Encoder, and let me just create our sequence. So again, I'll just double click. I'll look for that movie file. So in this particular case, that movie file is in the folder that I sent. So that's Explorers. Remember, it's this one, Movies. I created a new folder. Totally forgot to rename it, but there you go. So I'll just select the first one because it reads it as a JPEG sequence. And then what I'll do now is just save it in my desktop, for example. Or you know what? I'll save it in my Movies directory. Okay, and then hit save. And then one quick thing though, I just need to make sure under preferences, we're actually importing it at 30 because that's our frame rate. So I'll just go 30, and maybe, you know what, I need to do it again. So select that, open, it's going to import it at 30, specify where we're saving it. I'll put it in my movies directory, save, and then I'll just click on the button here, and then it does render it out. Now, just to prove my point that it's there, okay, this is our movies. And notice now this is our example. So if I double click on that, notice what happens. See, that's our sequence now. Okay. And now what I'll do is, see, notice now it's cutting. Again, we're only worried about what's being visible here. And then there you go. Okay. Again, there's a mask there, but we'll deal with that later. Okay. So now I have something like that. So hopefully this helps you. Any questions, just let me know. But this should help the layout artists and the shot artists start doing their task.